This is NTV.
Good afternoon and welcome to NTV at 1. My name is Olive Burrows. We start with the latest on the COVID-19 pandemic nationally, and Education Cabinet Secretary George Magoha has said 2 people attending a conference at KICD in Nakuru have tested positive for the virus, while 1,980 have been quarantined. Speaking after meeting with principals of TVET institutions, Magoha says there will be a reorganization of programs to bring in students in shifts.
Kabarak, I want to assure the nation that I personally went, inspected the hostels, inspected the halls, ensured that they have these automatic things where you put your hand and the sanitizers come around, ensure that they had many washing points. I would not have risked that at all. But since what happened, the people that are there will remain there. I think they'll be tested today and they will remain there for 14 days.
2 matters, crime, and the Directorate of Criminal Investigations has arrested 4 robbery suspects in connection with an incident that took place 4 days ago along Lenana Road in the capital city. The 4 were tracked down to their hideouts in Kawangware, Gatina, and Pangani. The DCI also recovered several items, including a MacBook and a mobile phone. The video of the early morning incident went viral on social media. 2 robbers accosted a man at 6 a.m. and robbed him at gunpoint before getting away using a motorbike. Their accomplices, including their host in Pangani, are among those arrested. The Public Service Commission is currently interviewing 10 candidates shortlisted for the position of a registrar of political parties. Other candidates for the position of assistant registrar of political parties are also expected to be interviewed this week. This comes at a time when several political parties in the country are experiencing leadership changes and disputes.
For the position of registrar of political parties, we have 5 male and 5 female candidates. Starting Tuesday, going to Wednesday and Thursday of this week, we shall interview a total of 37 candidates who are shortlisted for the 3 available positions of Assistant Registrar of Political Parties. At the end of this exercise, the Public Service Commission shall forward to His Excellency the President names of 3 nominees for appointment to the office of Registrar of Political Parties and the names of 9 nominees for appointment to the office of Assistant Registrar as provided in the law.
Still with political parties, Jubilee Party's Deputy Secretary General Caleb Kwasitani has warned of poor leadership within the party while questioning how the ruling party is balancing its books. The Swaleh constituency member of parliament also said that the party has no internal democracy and that Jubilee Party is running its affairs on threats and intimidation.
We are prepared to be the casualties, and everybody who has been removed from a police position because of being a friend of William Ruto knows where William Ruto's heart is. That is why he had lunch with them the other day and they all came. Not a single one said, "Oh, you did not help me." That is why he had a lunch with them at Jubilee Assili Center. That is the kind of person who we are saying deserves to lead this country, because he has a heart. He has a heart to appreciate what people did for him to get him where he is, and he has a heart to know that what you are going through is not because of you, it's because of him. So it's very difficult being in Jubilee now. It's no longer a party whereby we discuss issues. It has become a political party whereby decisions are made elsewhere and you are just supposed to sit there and endorse. And if you are not following into it, you will be crushed along the way. So it's a very sad state of affairs that competence is no longer a reason for you to hold on to office, but sycophancy is a reason for you to be given a position.
Back to the COVID-19 virus, and the Kabarak University has confirmed 2 of its staff have tested positive for coronavirus 2 days after Nakuru County recorded its highest corona number of cases. The Kenya Institute of Curriculum Development, which was meeting at the university, has begun evacuating its staff. And now Bridget Singana joins us live with the latest. Bridget, what do you have for us?
Yes, we have just arrived from Kabarak University, and just as you have mentioned, about 150 officials from the Ministry of Education, specifically from the Kenya Institute of Curricular Development, were meeting at the Kabarak University, but they were boarding at the Kabarak guest house. So right now, the Kabarak University has released a statement saying that they have been frequently testing their staff at the guest house, and 2 have tested positive, and that is as of 28th of this month, and I think that was Saturday, and Saturday is when Nakuru County recorded the highest number of positive cases. And just recently also, the Ministry of Health here in Nakuru County has released a statement saying that as of now there are 60 active cases of coronavirus here in Nakuru County, and they are saying that in terms of their distribution is that some of them have been tested at the Maimahi checkpoint, but right now there are about 34 alert cases, and those are among health workers. And I'm just reading the statement: 15 truck drivers, 6 food handlers, 2 healthcare workers, and 2 contacts with infected patients. And this just gives a brief of how this virus is spreading across the country. Remember last week, the Minister for Education, Professor George Magoha, was in Nakuru County, and they were talking about the possibility of reopening schools sometime in September. But I think with this report of the people, or the officials rather, being in an exposed environment, I think it also casts doubt in the possibility of that happening. But I believe the Ministry of Education will be giving us a detailed report on that. But as of now, we have seen ambulances going inside the Kabarak University premises. We've also seen government cars or parastatal cars going inside that facility and also ferrying these officials out. So as at now we speak, some of them are en route to Nairobi, and do believe that they're going to be quarantined in Nairobi or going to be self-quarantined in their respective homes. But right now the number is about 150 people who are at Kabarak University, but the positive cases are of staff who were working at the Kabarak University guest house, and this is according to the spokesperson for the Kabarak University.
Staying with COVID-19, we have Sharon Baranga, who was covering an event that the Education CS George Magoha was presiding over with the heads of TVET institutions on reopening. Sharon Baranga, what was said at the meeting?
Yes, Olive. And picking up from where Bridget's left, Professor George Magoha, the Education Cabinet Secretary, also touched on the case in Nakuru. And he said that 80 people currently have been placed on quarantine, and they are undergoing tests, and they will be there for 14 days until when they'll be ascertained that they are negative. Apart from that, Magoha was here attending a workshop with principals from different TVET institutions, and they were here basically to assess the level of preparedness ahead of reopening of the institutions. And it was confirmed that a number of TVET institutions have capacity to make face masks, to make their own face masks, soaps and sanitizers. And so, according to him, it's not going to be difficult for them to reopen the institutions. And social distancing and physical distancing is also going to be easier because the TVET institutions have been advised to reorganize their programs in such a way that they bring in students in shifts. Back to you, Olive.
All right, thank you very much, Sharon Baranga and Bridget Singana, updating us there on the COVID-19 infections reported in Nakuru, and of course Magoha's response to that. Now to politics, and there was drama at the Kitui County Assembly this morning after a group of ward representatives blocked lawyers representing Governor Charity Ngilu from accessing the office of the Assembly clerk. Trouble started when Ngilu's lawyers, led by Martin Olo and Maurice Kimuli, showed up to answer to summons requiring the client to appear before the House for her impeachment debate, which was slated for today. According to Olo, they were allowed into the assembly grounds where they sought the assembly clerk's audience, but the orderlies, without warning, pounced on them and threw them out. The assembly last weekend indefinitely put off debate on Ngilu's removal from office, pending determination of a court matter on July the 6th, 2020. Lawyer Kimuli was injured in the commotion and was rushed to Kitui County Referral Hospital for treatment. Tragically, a 16-year-old girl is seeking justice against her uncle for allegedly defiling her repeatedly while undergoing treatment in hospital in Marigat, Baringo County. Medical staff are demanding action against the offender, who seems to be well connected and somewhat untouchable in the community.
Her labored walk tells of the night-long ordeal that this 16-year-old had to endure. She had been brought to the hospital by a trusted guardian, her uncle Johnson Lemuguran, for malaria treatment. Unusual as it may be, the uncle insisted on keeping her company in the wards, as she had no other caregiver.
Na uncle yake akarequest, maana ni mtoto alikuwa anasema huwa na kifafa, lakini mtoto mwenyewe ana kifafa. Kwa kutibiwa kwetu, kwa vile alitibiwa, tezi zote zenye alifanyiwa, mtoto alikuwa na kifafa. Akasema angependa akae na yeye akimchunga, na sababu alimeta kama ngoli yake hatukufikiria chochote kinaweza fanyika. Akakaa, tukamkumbalia akakaa na huyo mtoto kwa ward.
Normally it's men taking care of men and women taking care of women, but in this said scenario the patient is an orphan.
And in the most unlikely place, the Marigat Catholic Mission Health Center wards, the caregiver turned monstrous, defiling the girl right in her sick bed.
Hiyo usiku, jioni usiku kulikuwa kunanyesha. Sasa huyo mchumba akateka advantage ya hakukuwa na mtu yeyote kwa ward. Akaanza kumtumia msichana, akaanza kumwambia ni msichana mdogo.
We alerted the Child Protection Center together with the police and other authorities, and they came and we took samples that were taken. We also took history and we assessed the patient.
Kusema kweli ilikuwa inaonekana, maana kama nguo zake za ndani ilikuwa na hizo white mucus. After alifanyiwa test na daktari alikonfirm ni ukweli mtoto alikuwa ameambusiwa the whole night, na mtoto mwenyewe alisema aliambusiwa the whole night.
Medical staff, upon learning of the incident, were shocked and have had to reconsider their security protocol.
We cannot trust everybody. Maybe now is to be in charge as a facility and not to give the guardian full charge or the parent.
Efforts to deliver justice to the offended has been difficult on account of the offender's social standing.
Hiyo kijiji wanasema ati ni mwanalika, ni ile wanaita engagement, ni kiongozi wao. Walimtoa. As we talk, huyo mtu ako nje anatembea tu.
As Baringo South OCPD Benjolife Munuve continues to dodge journalists, the orphan girl has been left in pain and in limbo, as the only home she knows is occupied by her abuser. Charity Mwangi, NTV.
I mean, really, what kind of animal does that to a child while they're admitted and they're sick? Now, farmers at the Kayan Group Ranch in Transmara West, Narok County, are counting losses of over 50 million shillings after a fierce fire razed down their sugarcane plantation last night. Over 200 acres of sugarcane plantation was destroyed, as Nuru Abdulaziz reports.
The extent of destruction at this sugarcane plantation is evident. According to the Kayan Group Ranch chairman, their farmers have suffered a significant loss.
Ulipata shida sana kwa sababu miwa yetu zaidi ya ekari 200 siliwahi kuchomwa usiku na watu enye mpaka sasa hatujui ni wakina nani.
GSU officers who responded to a distress call by the ranch managers couldn't help but watch helplessly as the fire destroyed the vast sugarcane plantation.
Hii miwa yetu iko katika mpaka yetu na majirani wetu. Na tunaomba kabisa serikali wafanye uchunguzi ya kina, wafanye uchunguzi kikamilifu ili hawa watu wenye wanataka kukosanisha watu katika mpaka wapatikane na waadhibiwe. kisheria.
According to the farmers, the sugarcane was already mature and ready for harvesting.
Tunaomba kampuni yetu ya Transmara waweze kutusaidia ili hii miwa itoke, ingawa tayari kuna ile penalty ya burnt cane ambaye Kenya itapotesha kitu kama milioni 4 na hasara zingine kwa sababu hii miwa ni kubwa sana.
The farmers say they are facing many challenges, principal amongst them arsons. Nuru Abdulaziz, NTV.
As the Kenyan government prepares to reopen, President Uhuru Kenyatta saying that inter-county movement will once again be permitted. Will be joined by the CEO of the Kenya Climate Innovation Center, Edward Mungai, right after this break.
Sonadol Extra imetengenezwa kwa njia spesheli kupambana haraka na maumivu ya kichwa, mwili na hata meno. Sonadol Extra, hakika maumivu yakizidi, pata ushauri wa daktari.
Who wants to answer? Mary?
Mary has a toothache.
Oh, I see. And who knows why?
Because the tooth is too big.
No, it might be a hole in her tooth called a cavity. That's why I brush twice a day using Colgate. Imagine this is your tooth and these are food acids that cause cavities. Colgate with calcium and fluoride helps prevent cavities. Who protects our teeth? Colgate! For maximum cavity protection.
Niko sawa. Ni venye nimetoka clinic na baba Brenda.
Mume wako anakubali mwende hospitali pamoja? Wangu hata nimlipe, hauwezi kubali.
Ilibidi twende na yeye, nipimwe. Yeye apimwe. Kama kuna HIV, nipewe dawa ndio mtoto asipate HIV.
Wanaume wenzangu, kuandamana na mama akienda clinic na pia kujua hali yako ya HIV ni muhimu. Inaonyesha unamjali na pia unajali mtoto wako mtarajiwa. Je, unajijua?
Unapoendelea kujikinga kutokana na HIV, tafadhali zingatia taratibu zote za serikali za kujikinga na virusi vya corona.
Afya bora, maisha bora. Jipime, jiinue.
Have you filed your 2019 tax returns? You have few days remaining. Do it today and avoid the last-minute rush. Log on to itax.kra.go.ke.
My father worked hard, and he made sure I did too. Because of him, I studied every day, and I did well. He helped me start my first business. It's only now I understand. My father always had big dreams for me. And now, my dreams are the same as my father's.
In 175 years, we've learned that times change, but what matters never will.
Thank you for staying with us on NTV at 1. As I mentioned before we took the break, I'm joined now by the CEO of the Kenya Climate Innovation Center, Edward Mungai. Karibu sana to the program. Government is considering reopening business in the country, of course, the closure occasioned, or rather impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic. How has COVID-19 impacted your clients? Because you work with micro, small and medium enterprises, helping them innovate around issues to do with climate change. How have they been affected?
Well, I think the first and most important thing is that COVID obviously have presented kind of a very brutal situation for our clients, specifically because, well, first of all, they were not on e-commerce. Many of them were still doing business inter-county. And then when we closed down the borders of the counties, then definitely revenues shrinked. Now, in terms of revenue, that is one key perspective that we have really lost in terms of the enterprises. The second thing is in terms of productivity. The kind of the restrictions and the kind of protocols that the government is putting in place obviously is restricting the kind of productivity we used to have post-COVID-19. And I think also in terms of their wellness, that also is a little bit of a challenge. And more importantly, also the customers and the power for customers to pay for product, also that have been challenged. Well, the good news is that as an organization, we have come up with measures which then should try to help us to manage what have been happening to our clients. I must say that these are businesses which are very specific in terms of resolving another big pandemic which is coming, which is called climate change. And what we have seen is that we have worked with them for 7 years. We are going to lose these businesses because of the challenges that the COVID-19 is presenting. Definitely what that means is that we must come up with solutions. For instance, we have set up an emergency fund. I talked about cash flow shrinking. We have an emergency cash flow or fund which is helping these businesses so that then we can make them to be resilient and for them to be able to continue. Obviously giving coaching and kind of counseling services because of their wellness. And this is something that many people are not taking seriously. But we have taken it very seriously that we should be able to support them from that perspective. Of course, putting them on e-commerce and helping them to come up with ways they can be able to sell digitally. That's also a very important point. And more importantly, also giving them the skills and business continuity plans which can keep them going. So these are some of the challenges that we have seen as a result of COVID-19. But I think generally and obviously it's better to look at it from the perspective of the staff that we are dealing with, and we have, as KCIC, we have put in mechanism. But I think more importantly also, I talked about the clients, but also as Kenya, we have a duty and responsibility as an entity to help Kenyans. And that's why together with our development partners, Danida and European Union, we have called for 2 calls for young people to come forward, give us ideas on how we can be able to help them to cope with COVID-19 by setting up new businesses and innovative businesses. And those are some of the things that we've been trying to work on, also to be responsible citizens as an organization.
Okay. Yeah. You mentioned another big issue, of course, is climate change. And Greta Thunberg is a major activist as far as climate change is concerned. And she said climate change is just as urgent as COVID-19. Why do you think people haven't quite taken it as seriously as they have the COVID-19 pandemic?
Well, the biggest thing about climate change is, yes, it's urgent, but it takes very slow pace to take effect. Now, we are talking about in another 50 years is when probably, of course, we have started seeing the impact, but big impacts like what we are seeing with COVID will probably happen in 20, 30 years to come. And that is why we haven't taken it very seriously. But the good news is there's many elements that we can be able to borrow from COVID-19. One of the key one, and really I'm very happy about it, is that eventually policymakers, government can now listen to scientists. Politics and science is coming together to solve challenges. This is something that we haven't seen before. COVID have made it possible, and in terms of climate change, we need to see government, we need to see policymakers talking to scientists and trying to appreciate and to see how we can resolve it. Of course, the other big thing is that innovation. Well, now people are working 24 hours to come up with a vaccine for the virus. We also need to have the same initiatives in terms of helping innovations within issues of climate change. And of course, that's what we represent for as Kenya Climate Innovation Center, to try to steer innovative solutions that would be able to help us. And more practically, I think we have also seen that there's some benefits that climate change fight is getting from COVID. For instance, maybe we wouldn't be here, I would be probably in the US trying to, again, spread the gospel and preach the gospel about climate change. But I didn't have to fly all the way. So that we have given our environment a breather, and which is something that is very important to know that in future, we can be able to do meetings without necessarily taking 8,000 miles to go to the US or to go to Asia to be able to present that. Of course, even as individuals, we've also seen that there is also a capability that as individuals, as countries, we have a role, a duty and responsibility as individuals to fight climate change. I mean, for COVID, we are all putting our arms together and trying to fight COVID. We need also to do exactly the same when it comes to climate change.
Correct. You know, listening to you, and you've talked about how your clients, you're attempting to help your clients innovate around the COVID-19 pandemic to remain robust and viable in this new normal. And you've talked about e-commerce. What I didn't expect you to talk about was counseling. providing counseling services. Why did you feel that there's a need to provide that?
Well, the key thing is that, and I give you an example, this is probably the first time since March 15th that I have come to CBD. Before that, I used to come almost, of course, every day. Now, the distance between my office and my dining room is 30 seconds. Before, I would spend an hour or 45 minutes interacting with colleagues and people talking. This day, I don't have that opportunity. Of course, what that means is mentally, I need to be taken care of. Unfortunately, we are not taking it very seriously. We have started seeing kids banging doors. We have started seeing observable behaviors, and this is all about mental wellness. This is something also we have taken very seriously, where we have put services for our clients so that then they can be able to acquire these services. They can be counseled and they can be able to be told on the things to watch for, and hopefully then we can still keep them doing what they know best, which is innovating for climate change.
Okay, so you talked about, like, one of the good things that's come with the COVID-19 pandemic is now governments are listening to the scientists. Assuming President Uhuru Kenyatta is watching this broadcast, and why not? He should. What do you have to say to him as he prepares perhaps on July the 7th to talk about where we stand as far as COVID-19 is concerned?
Well, I think the president have done extremely well, or the government have done extremely well in terms of listening to the scientists, as far as the health concern is, COVID-19 is concerned. Now, when it comes, and we really probably, they have done a good job. Where we need to do a good job, 3 weeks ago, EPI, which is Environmental Performance Index, rated Kenya is number 132. 2 years before we were number 130. We are kind of slowing down. What I urge the president is to also listen to the scientists in terms of climate change, listen to people who are trying to build the private sector to think about climate change, because we cannot win climate change by policymakers only. Private sector must be able to play a role, and we must be able not necessarily to give incentives, but we must have a support mechanism to businesses to take sustainability very seriously. The president is really keen with SMEs. I want to urge him to continue working with SMEs, but also to note that, of course, with COVID and with climate change, we see more challenges. So in terms of taxation, in terms of the incentives that are there, let's rethink them. Also availing funds to these businesses, because that's what we need to grow these businesses. And it will help him to solve the challenge of unemployment. It will help him to solve some of the social good that we need to be provided. It can be provided by private sector and SME for that matter. So my focus to him is really continue the journey with SMEs, but even think about it, how you can be able to move them even more faster than we have done before.
All right, thank you so very much for spending some time with us this afternoon. Edward Mungai, who's the CEO of the Kenya Climate Innovation Center, he's talked about how they've been forced to adapt in this new normal and focus more on e-commerce. And he's also called on President Uhuru Kenyatta, thanked him, of course, for what the government has done so far to support the micro, small and medium enterprises. But his focus has to do with innovation around climate change, and he says that is as urgent, echoing Greta Thunberg, that is as urgent as COVID-19. Thank you so very much.
Thank you very much for having me.
Okay, so we move over to Tana River County, and the government has formed a team to address the education crisis in the Tana Delta after it emerged that over 1,000 learners are unable to attend radio classes due to floods, droughts, among other challenges.
Floods in the Delta displaced about 48,000 people and destroyed 2 secondary schools and 18 primary schools in the region. A team of education stakeholders in the area is coming up with plans to ensure the learners catch up with the rest of the students.
Some of those pupils and the students are not yet ready for marriage. They are still in the hands of the government. They are not yet adults. So the responsibility of taking them back to school lies with the government, and it is our mandate to do that.
Nyaga said the mitigation is part of the plans by the government to reopen schools in September.
Through the local FM station, we can use maybe the printed materials. We can use the vehicle we have from the CDF and the office of the DCC, so that we can distribute those materials to our students through the Nyumba Kumi and the village elders.
According to the TSC director, Tana Delta Sub-County, 100% of the Board of Management of teachers in the region have been going without salaries since the beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic.
We are fearing that if we lose one or all of them, In Tana River, to get a beyond teacher is a challenge. We will start from the scratch. But we are liaised with the CDF to see that they do something so that we retain the BOM teachers.
The sub-county has a total of 544 TSC teachers in primary schools as well as 179 in secondary schools. Judith Cherono, NTV.
Let's take a look at how other countries across our borders are managing the COVID-19 pandemic. And bars in the City of Angels and 6 other Californian counties were ordered to close as the United States reimposes shutdown measures to try to quell a surge in coronavirus cases. New coronavirus cases have jumped in more than half of U.S. states, reaching record highs after months of uneven mitigation efforts and sometimes contradictory messaging from the government. Texas and Florida have also once again cracked down, ordering bars to stop serving alcohol. California, Texas and Florida are the 3 most populous states in the country. The hardest hit U.S. states are currently in the South and West, where many state leaders have pushed for early economic reopenings. The latest upsurge pushing the nation's total of declared cases to more than 2.5 million and its death toll past 125,000. This has prompted a growing chorus of calls for much tougher rules and enforcement of restrictions. Time now for the sports, and Simba Sports Club have retained the Tanzania Premier League title after a 0-0 draw against Tanzania Prisons. It's the first league title for coach Sven Vanderbok, who arrived in December 2019 to take charge of the Msimbazi-based side. The mainland victory means Simba retained their slot in the CAF Champions League competition. In the last decade, Yanga has won the league 5 times, Simba 4 and Azam FC 1. Further afield, and Manchester United will square off with Chelsea, and Manchester City will face Arsenal as revealed by the draw for the FA Cup semi-finals. The penultimate